Hey, Tim DeStasio here. It is Psychrometric Saturday once again. We've been talking a lot about relative humidity in the last couple of episodes and how it is different from absolute humidity. Relative humidity is relative to the amount of moisture that the air can hold. Warm air can hold more moisture. Cold air can't hold as much moisture. And relative humidity can really be very different depending on how much moisture that air can hold. As you can see, our psychrometric chart looks very, very clear. And I've removed a lot of the clutter, and I've only left the relative humidity curves. Now, a typical psychrometric chart is going to have relative humidity curves that sort of follow the shape of that saturation curve, and it's going to have those curves in 10% increments. I've only included a few here because I want to keep the clutter away. Now, as long as you know two properties of air, you can plot a point on the chart. It does not matter which two properties of air that is. We've been dealing a lot with dry bulb temperature and dew point, maybe a little bit of grains of moisture here on the right side of the chart. But really, even if you had dry bulb temperature and relative humidity, you could plot a point and then be able to decipher all the other properties of the air. And we're going to do that here over the next few minutes with some string. So let's plot our first problem here. Our properties of air are 75 degree dry bulb and 55 degrees dew point. Now, we've plotted this several times. We're going to use some string and we're going to find out what our relative humidity is at those properties. Okay, I've got some string. I've got a couple of magnets. So again, our dry bulb temperature is going to be 75 degrees. And so we're going to plot that line right here. It just goes straight up and down. Same thing we've been doing for weeks and weeks on end. Our second property is 55 degrees dew point. So let's go ahead and plot that using a blue string. We're at 55 degrees of dew point. So we're going to plot that line right there. Okay, so I've plotted my two properties. Where they intersect is my operating point, which is right here. And so what would be our relative humidity? Well, it would be the curve that intersects along with those two lines. In this case, our relative humidity is 50%. So the solution to our problem right here is 50%. Okay, our next set of air properties is 85 degree dry bulb. But now we already have our relative humidity, which is 40%. We're going to be looking for what our dew point is. So again, we're going to start with the information we have. We're going to plot our dry bulb temperature using the red string. So we've got 85 degrees plotted right here. Next thing we need to know is where it intersects our 40% curve. As we can see, it intersects it right at this point. So what is our dew point? Well, we're going to have to draw a horizontal line to find out. Let's do that with our blue string. So when we draw our horizontal line, which is our dew point line, we find that our dew point should be somewhere around 55 degrees. Okay, for our third problem, we have our dew point, which is 60 degrees, and we have our relative humidity. We're looking for our dry bulb temperature. So let's go ahead and plot what we have. So our 60 degree dew point line will be the first thing that we do using this blue string. All right, we've got our horizontal line that represents our 60 degrees dew point. Where it intersects with the 60% relative humidity, we're going to next take our red string and we're going to draw a line and see what our dry bulb temperature is. Our vertical line where our 60% relative humidity and our 60 degrees dew point intersect. This time we were looking for dry bulb temperature. It ended up being about 73 degrees dry bulb. So what do we learn? All we need to do is have two properties of air and we can plot a point on the psychrometric chart, and from there we can figure out all the other properties of the air. And you're going to be using different points of data throughout diagnostics and design. And there's a lot more properties of air that we have yet to talk about. So it's good to really simplify the chart, only concentrate on the two properties of air that you have, extrapolate the rest, and don't let the psychrometric chart whoop you. That's all for now. We'll talk some more next week on Psychrometric Saturday.